wheelchair.
Yeah,
Because so, and I don't think when they create these things, they actually have a disabled person with like five bags on their lap and they're losing arm strength trying to open a fire door. So
yeah.
that's those.
People need to do to make stuff more accessible for everyone. It's because you you don't know if one day you're gonna have a person with a like for a quadriplegic or a person like you that it's losing functions time to time, and you know what I mean.
Yep. And it, Judy Heumann, God rest her soul, she said, nothing about us without us. Um, but, you know, they actually need to have disabled people run the gauntlet of these things, not just a disability specialist. I was in a restaurant and there was a person who was visually impaired who was touching the braille on the restroom signs, and she demanded to see the manager, and the manager came and she said, "Who did you get to do this braille?" And the person was like, "Oh, I don't know, head office, blah blah." She said, "Because there's actually racist and homophobic. This is not identifying, male, female, and gender neutral slash family washroom. These are actually like homophobic and racist slurs in Braille." So they actually didn't have a visually impaired person check to see that the Braille was correct.
Well, again, when you don't have a specialized people with disability doing things, other people do things that like how they think they are correct, but most of the things they're not correct. They're not right, like ramps or elevators, or yeah, like they're like standard. But the elevators, well, the ramps sometimes they are like this when they are need to be like this.
Yep.
Tiff, do you want to do another one?
Those are the only ones that I have. You can add whatever you want.
Um, so I have one. It was difficult for you to find a job, or as long as the time has passed and your disability has improved, it has been difficult to stay in your job, or it has been normal.
Um, so there's um there's a very two-sided question um heading out, uh heading with that. So when the symptoms started to appear, um, I was in one job, and it it came on fast, and because I was taking multiple buses and walking to work, eventually I did need the walker to like sit, and because I was falling a lot, um, and it was a funnily enough, it was a job where, it was working with special education and really nice people, but they wanted they said, you may need to go on a leave, um, because they did require a more physically um, involved person with this job. And I used to be a very physical, um, I used to be a very physically active person. Um, and so, being an elementary school teacher, you need to be physically active, with it being special education or special needs, particularly even more so. And so, uh, with that, I wasn't pushed out of the job, but it was wearing me down fast. And so I I ended that job with the thought that am I going to be able to remain a teacher? I was like, I'm in trouble. I
Mm-hmm.
was genuinely scared. And then what ended up happening was that I was we only had my one child at that point. The other one hadn't come along, and I was kind of searching around, interviewing for jobs. And at that point, I had the walker or the two medical crutches, and I was hitting job after job. And it was in the summertime of 2018. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
was coming up. School boards weren't hiring still, and I just was not able to get anything for the life of me. And I was having to travel as far as Toronto. And so I got an email for this interview and in Toronto at a great school. And I said, I have a physical disability. Is that an issue? Is your school accessible? And he said, this principal's retired now. He said, I'm sorry, it's not. He said, but we'll work it out somehow. And so for that first year, like I got the job and it was such an amazing organization. It was a semi-private school and they they were so wonderful. It really saved my life and saved my mentality, even. And like so, when I could climb upstairs, like I had rooms up there, and I had a trolley that I could walk around like a walker. And then eventually, I got to the point where I couldn't do that, and I messaged them the following school year. I said, "Listen, I don't think I can do walk upstairs anymore." And they said, "That's fine." They said, the next day they had switched me to a giant classroom right by the parking lot and the wheelchair accessible washroom. And um, then they're like, do you need anything else? I said, well, my voice is starting to go. And they said, we've that's fine. Next day they've hooked me up with a Microsoft or a sound system and a microphone. Then the following year, they built a new courtyard. And I said, is there a way that we can maybe get a ramp? Because we're having our graduations there, but I can't get there. Within 24 hours, multiple ramps were built around the school. That was like a real positive experience. And they were a private business, so they technically didn't have to follow under that kind of like AOTA guideline. But they really walk the walk and talk the talk. And I drove every day to and from Toronto for 4 years because they were that worth it. And so it was tough when I got a job local in the board here, it was very difficult to leave my school in Toronto, but it was better for my health, better for my family. Um, and with Canadian winters, definitely better for driving. Um, but I found that the boards were also very eager to help. The principals and the students and the teachers here want to be accommodating. They don't see it as a burden. What they do see it as a they see you as adding, we're Canadians in a way that we're adding to a fabric of a mosaic of a beautiful tapestry. And I'm just another tile in that mosaic. And, you know, it's very much, I talk with my friends in the Catholic board who are wheelchair teachers, and they experience the same thing. It's not about, people, if the change is uncomfortable, the the boards welcome that change in the way that they say this is stuff that it's good that we're seeing, and it's good that it's happening, and it's good that we are learning. And so I think that the experiences of our southern neighbors, and I hear about the horror stories for teachers with disabilities down there, I do see some of it from time to time, I think it would be a bigger issue if the disability, I think that in some ways it's almost like the concept of the heroic disabled person, you know. I think people would have a bigger issue if the person was a quadriplegic and had no movement from the neck down, or if the person was visually impaired and trying to teach in a disabled or was trying to teach in elementary school. Um, I I think that we would see greater struggles for people. And there are things that I know that I will not be hired for. I would not be hired as a lifeguard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. That's fine. And I think as disabled people, we do need to be realistic that there are
Mm-hmm.
limitations. But
Yes.
I think I think that again, it comes up with the real test of if our society with working is really moving towards total inclusion is when you see
Mm-hmm.
someone that doesn't have a quote unquote that attractive disability, where it's, you know, it's that minimalist uh, requirement for, um, you know, accessible inclusion, um, in the way that like I'd say that a business or institution or government has arrived when we see a person with uh, an oral disability in the workplace at the same level, competing at the same level as another employee or someone with a visual disability
Yeah.
in the same boat. I don't know if we're there yet in Canada, but I think we're in better shape than a lot of other places.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for interrupting, but my Zoom is not the premium one, so we have less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Can you share your Instagram real quick?
So my Instagram is disabled underscore dad. So DISABLED underscore DAD. And I'm on Instagram. Yep.
okay. So any other social media you have?
I'm on Threads as well. Same thing, disabled underscore dad, and that's it.
Okay, so thank you for letting us do this interview. And any final words you want to say? Please be quick.
Nope, that's everything. Just thanks for having me.
Can I take a selfie with all y'all?
Sure.
Be quick, Tiff.
Okay, go. Okay, I got it.
Okay. Okay, so
I'll
thank you
send it to
so
you, so
much.
I'll
Thank
send it to
Thank
you.
you
you.
so much. So see you in the
Bye.
next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.